Hi everyone, I'm Mohit Lad, co-founder and CEO at ThousandEyes, VP GM at Cisco, and I'm excited to welcome you to our Cloud State event, where we unveil results of our third edition of the Cloud Report. Now, the last time we did this was in 2019, where we compared different cloud providers, public cloud providers, and understood the differences in their network performance, but also architectural differences that sort of resulted in different behaviors. And over the last 3 years, as you know, like a lot has changed. The pandemic has accelerated digital transformation. The cloud providers were leaned on very heavily to scale for organizations, even from a standpoint of people going home, proxies, all kinds of things. And they've really had to scale. So now coming out of the pandemic a bit, it's a great time to look at the results and see how the last 2 or 3 years have changed what we had found from 2019. So I hope you're excited to look at some of the results with us. Now, this is not just data that we're throwing on the screen. These are results, these are insights, and there's visuals. And we have a couple of our experts from ThousandEyes who've spent 15 plus years at ThousandEyes, have really sort of built their entire expertise around internet and cloud environments. They will be sharing all these insights with a level of depth that we've always brought to the table, which will help you understand some of the fundamental architectural differences, what it means, how do you use this data in order to make smarter decisions, what does it really mean to you. So we're providing a lot of depth here, and I hope you're excited to learn a lot about this over the next hour or so. And finally, we are going to have a conversation with Simon Challis from EasyJet to wrap things up. Now, why do we do this? Research is really in our DNA. We started ThousandEyes coming out of our PhD programs at UCLA, where we basically did our PhD on internet routing, visualization. We found that understanding these public environments like the internet was not easy. And we also found that the insights we provided were always valuable. So we've continued this tradition of producing research, whether it's a blog or a report or outage analysis, throughout the journey of ThousandEyes. And the idea is to continue doing this so we can provide value to the community. And so hopefully, out of the 2 billion plus measurements that we do on a daily basis, the insights that we're driving are helpful to you personally as you understand and develop your own public cloud strategy and decide to make decisions. Hopefully this data is very helpful. Now, if I just step up a little bit and think about what has really dramatically changed over the last few years, cloud is now the new data center. SaaS applications such as WebEx and Office 365 and Salesforce are the new app stack. And in the last 2-3 years in particular, home has become the new office. And all of this means that the public internet, and I tell people the same internet that people used to watch cat videos, right, is that internet that your enterprise is using to reach your users or your employees. And all of this means that your control is shrinking, and external dependencies are now exponentially growing. Even think about just your application. Your application used to have code libraries all built into the application, and now they have API calls going to third parties. So all of these are just dramatically increasing the the external dependencies. And when this happens, your paradigm to manage this has to change. And we're seeing this shift in the organizations that are adopting cloud or adopting SaaS. Previously, you could basically look at your own contained environment, find out what the problem was, and then tell the party who could fix it to come and fix it, right? So it was a network or application or infrastructure. But as you go into these hybrid areas where you have a lot more dependencies outside your control, the paradigm often shifts from finding the fault and fixing it to finding evidence of where the fault is. And you need some solid evidence to understand where the issue is, because just saying that it's not my environment is not enough for you to fix a problem. So you need to know whether it's the service provider, it's the cloud provider, if it's the application, the API call. And when you have this evidence, you then need to either escalate it or share the data. In some situations, you can fix it by routing, by making routing changes, or by changing the workloads. You can actually fix some of these issues as well. But oftentimes you have to escalate it or share data. And this is where public clouds have become even more important. Because of the adoption, especially over the pandemic, we've seen this even more accelerated. A couple of 2 or 3 really strong numbers for you here. 91% in a recent survey done by Cisco were accelerating cloud native efforts. And what was really interesting is 92% of those surveyed were using or planning to use multiple clouds. Now, when you're using multiple public clouds and they are architecturally different, I think that's some really valuable information that you need to take into account. So you know what your strategy would be, what your escalations would be, where your failure points could be, etc. And another interesting stat here is 70% of outages are actually outside your own environment. And we actually believe that the number of dependencies are outside your environment are continuing to increase. So this number may actually go up even more in the future. So before we go into the insights from this year's report, I just wanted to remind folks a summary of what we found in the past. First, we found that cloud providers differ in their strategy on how they use public internet to move traffic. Some use their backbone a lot more than others, and some use the public internet a lot more than others. So it is more of a network architecture philosophy decision in some of these cases, but it does impact what your performance expectations are. And sometimes on a particular snapshot in time, you'll find there are not much differences, but where it matters is if there are parts of the internet which are less reliable, like some parts of Asia. When a cloud provider is using the public internet a lot more, it produces more variability. So that's why this was really interesting. We also found that even between cloud providers, there were significant anomalies in terms of hosting locations sometimes, providers and user locations. So just knowing some of this, trending it and benchmarking over time was super helpful. And after our first report, we got a lot of interest on what is the performance from China, either going to China or coming out of China. And we found in summary that no matter which cloud provider you choose, you have to pay a performance toll when you're crossing the Great Firewall of China. So these were some of the key findings. But as I mentioned before, the last 3 years have probably seen acceleration of digital transformation, maybe closer to like 10-year period. And so it's really going to be interesting to look at how this has changed over the last 3 years. And in order to dive deeper into what we have for this year, I'm excited to introduce Angelique Medina, Head of Internet Intelligence for ThousandEyes. Angelique, over to you.